What we want to do here is convert the function y equals negative 1/3 x squared plus 1/2 x minus 1 to vertex form by completing the square. We're going to follow our steps methodically. First thing we want to do is factor the leading coefficient out from the first two terms. So we're going to factor negative 1/3 out from negative 1/3 x squared and positive 1/2. Well, we better figure out what 1/2 divided by negative 1/3 is. 1/2 divided by negative 1/3 is the same as 1/2 times 3 over negative 1, because we invert and multiply the second fraction. That's 3 over negative 2. We prefer to have our negative sign in the numerator, so it's negative 3 over 2. So factoring out a negative 1/3 leaves us with negative 1/3 times x squared minus 3/2 x. What we're then going to do is divide this coefficient of x by 2, put it in a red triangle because it'll become useful later. Negative 3/2 divided by 2 is the same as negative 3/2 divided by 2 over 1. Invert and multiply, you have negative 3/2 times 1 over 2, which is negative 3/4. Remember that number. We're going to square that result. Negative 3/4 times negative 3/4 is 9/16. We add and subtract that last result inside the brackets. Well, remember the bracket was x squared minus 3/2 x. So now it'll be x squared minus 3/2 x plus 9 over 16 minus 9 over 16. We maintain the minus 1 that's been there all along. What we now want to do is distribute this negative 1/3 only to the last term in order to kick it out of the bracket. And what we end up with is, after we do that, negative 1/3 times negative 9/16 equaling 9/48, which is 3/16. And we recognize from the red triangle that this is simply x minus 3 over 4, quantity squared, and we can collect like terms here. So recognize the trinomial inside the bracket is a perfect square, and if you don't recognize it, go back to the red triangle a few steps back. That red triangle is right here. And then we collect like terms outside the bracket, which we already did. We haven't done it yet, but plus 3/16 minus 1 is the same as 3/16 minus 16/16, which is negative 13/16. So what we have after everything's said and done is negative 1/3 times x minus 3/4 quantity squared minus 13/16. This becomes this.